Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Africam Show. It is nice to be back with all of you. I hope that you're doing well and you're ready to jump into all the cams and chat all things wildlife. We are starting off at Jack's camp. Oh, nice. We have a lot of wildebeest, all chilling, and two zebras. Remember that we're live and interactive, everyone, so please send through those questions and those comments. We'd love to hear from you. Already we have the usuals coming through. We've got Jean Gale that says good morning from the foothills near Seattle. You've got your coffee and the sun is coming through the trees. Nice. Iggy711, you say hello from North Carolina. Hi, Iggy. Jack DeBoer says good morning from Chesapeake, Virginia. Bridget McKinney. Oh, hey, Bridget, you say you might be off early getting coffee with your candidate for Congress. Oh, it all sounds very serious. Asa Negro, you say you're having your usual black coffee here in Metro Vancouver, where it's a pleasant 60 degrees Fahrenheit or 15 degrees Celsius. I'm glad you think that's pleasant. It's about 15 degrees Celsius right now in Johannesburg, and I'm sitting in front of the heater with a blanket on me. But I'm used to the hot South African summers and the few weeks that we actually experience winter. It's just too much for us. And it's also not long enough for us to actually get used to winter. Do you know what I mean? Before you know it, it's over. So all we do is whinge and whine, and suddenly the temperature's back up and everything's back to normal. MG Leopard Spots, you say greetings. Very bright, sunny morning here in California. Ice water in hand is very nice. Casper's That Ghost, you say, happy Tuesday, Trish, and everybody ready for the ride with some nice cold water. I've got plain water myself. And Gordon J is also here. And Bridget, you said it was great to see you. It was lovely to be on screen for a little bit as well. Hey, Jan Powers is here as well. Thank you. It was nice being on drive. But it also feels very good to be back home and be doing the Africam show with you all. Zygote is also in the house. Namaste to you too, Zygote. Now, Jack's camp, which is what we're looking at right now, one of those areas in Botswana where it's pretty much located in the Makadikati salt pan, so you're seeing lots of these flat areas. Now, it's interesting to look at the way the landscape changes and the specific characteristics of a landscape. And it's also maybe something to pay attention to when we go across the different cams, because how the landscape changes, well, firstly, geologically, what the landscape looks like. Like, is it flat? Are there lots of rocky outcrops? Are there mountains? All those things affect the makeup of the life in those areas. So the biodiversity. And that biodiversity can change with elevation, with different soil types, with moisture availability. Because at the end of the day, those factors that are non-living or abiotic, those factors influence what type of vegetation grows there. And then that influences what type of animals, what type of grazers or browsers exist in that area. And then that influences what predators are in the area. So it's all intertwined, and that's what I love about wild environments. Rolling Trouble is also in the house, rolling through. Hi, Rolling Trouble. Nice to hear your name. So recently, I've been spending a lot of time with wildebeest, believe it or not, because the winter has been harsh. I was recently at Mabula Game Reserve, and I must say it was difficult to find little things. And I think that I had actually forgotten that in winter, so many things are dormant, so many insects die off in order to survive the winter, and the vegetation gets so dry. But the wildebeest, the humble wildebeest, is always around. So I've been spending a little bit of time with them. And I started to notice variations in their coat color. Now, generally, they've got this sort of steely, gunmetal-y, dark coat that has like a undertone, a gray silvery undertone. And so the males are much darker, and then the females are a bit more brown. So imagine that same dark shade, but instead of a metallic-y silvery gray undertone. With the males, you get a brown undertone with the females and with the youngsters. But then I started to notice little changes in maybe the tone of those colors. And they're actually really beautiful animals. Now, wildebeest and zebras are often in exactly Otsonegro. You say the zebras and the wildebeest seem to get along, and they often do. I'm sure that we might visit one of the cameras up in the Mara as well as we're continuing to monitor the migration. But wildebeest and zebra definitely do get along, which, when you think about it, is quite interesting because it seems as if they're in direct competition. They're both grazers, but they go after different lengths. So zebras are very easy grazers. They'll take pretty much anything growing on the ground, in the way of grass, whether it's tall, whether it's long, whether it's dry, whether it's juicy, even burnt grasses. Zebras don't really seem to have a problem with it. Wildebeest are a bit more selective. So even though on paper you might think that these two species are highly competitive, they're basically in the same niche, both eating grasses, both living in groups. But these gaps in nature, the little gaps that sometimes it feels like are almost created, like almost if there is a gap to be found, an animal will fill that gap. And those gaps are called niches. And what I mean when I say they're almost created is that some animals or some species, depending on the mutation that they have that could be advantageous in a certain environment, it's almost like they create a niche for themselves. Like at which point did different grasslands become the differentiating factor between zebras and wildebeest? Was it just that one seemed to move faster than the other, like we see in the Mara cams, the zebras coming through faster than the wildebeest, and so the wildebeest were forced to have shorter grasses, or the zebra were forced to just take the longer grasses? Who knows? But actually, speaking of the camera up in the Mara, let's head over to Main Crossing because I would love to have a look at some of the zebra. There we go. We're just looking away from the river at the moment, but you might be able to hear the river. Oh, this is nice. I've noticed that they come through in quite tight groups. And I definitely think that that is a safety thing, not just safety from potential predators. I mean, that's probably the big one. Safety from predators, but I also think it's a bit of safety from the environment too. It's treacherous, these crossings. Sticking together is better. You can almost see it. Look at those two that have stopped and are just watching, almost like guards, right? The zebra's best tactic is to stay together. I would love to see them actually go down to the river. So we've been waiting anxiously for the wildebeest to start to come through. It's always the zebras first and then the wildebeest follow, and they follow in greater numbers. So we're really looking forward to that. And about a couple hours ago at Fig Tree, which is the other camera that we have on the Mara River, We did see a wildebeest cross, but it did get taken. And that leads us nicely into Iggy's question. But before I get into that, hi, Dion. You made it on board. Nice. You say you're sneaking in a little late, but you're happy to be here with your coffee. Well, we're happy to have you on board. So, Iggy, you were wondering if the crocs recognize their target by color or probably more size. Now, this is quite interesting, and I like the way you're thinking because you're thinking very specifically. Could it be size? Could it be color? So these are very specific characteristics that you're thinking about when you are trying to figure out how the croc is seeing its environment and selecting its targets. So crocodiles actually have pretty good vision. Um, for example, these zebra, they only have two color cones. Color cones in their eyes that are receptive to blue and green. So we are lucky we have a third color cone as a mammal and some primates as well. We have a third color cone to pick up red. Now between those three, we're pretty good at figuring out the environment, right? And crocodiles, they're able to detect violets, greens, and reds. That's also a really good range to be able to see a lot of things going down. So primarily they're going to be detecting their prey by sight, but not necessarily color. But the thing with color or the way that eyes work, in that it's not just locking into something specific. Even if we're talking about cone cells in the eyes that are detecting color, how that the range of color and the depth and shadows and things like that are really helpful in determining the distance between your prey, the size of your prey. It also gives you a little information about that. So size and so size of the prey is definitely going to be something that the crocodile considers, but color is not going to be something it considers. If anything, it's using its color receptors to identify what it is it's got in its mouth or it's targeting, but color is not going to be one of the reasons that it actually selects that target. Size and opportunity are the big things. So a crocodile would see an elephant and probably think, well, that's not going to do anything for me because I can't take down that elephant. But if there is a predator at the water's edge, cheetah, leopard, lion, hyena, wrong place, wrong time, not paying attention, a crocodile can easily take it. Because remember, a crocodile is an apex predator. But the reason color is not going to be a big factor for the crocodile is because the majority of the time it's eating mammals, an adult crocodile that is. Remember that youngsters' diet is mostly fish. I mean, adults will also eat fish as well, but they'll have to eat pretty big fish to sustain them. But the color doesn't make a difference. If the opportunity is there and the size is good, that's all that matters. Kathy Lee, you say it's the first time joining and you know that voice. Nice to have you on board, Kathy Lee. I hope that you will join us again. During the Africam show, we go through the different cameras and you get to ask whatever you like. And of course, it's live. So now we're at the main crossing at the Mara River, just watching these zebra. Iggy, you're also asking, you say also there were zebras, just a few of them, seeming to strategize their crossing alongside the WB. Wildebeest. Is that something that happens? I can't say that I've read any papers that describe that happening because it's a difficult thing to research. I mean, how do you measure strategizing in a zebra? It's a very nuanced thing. It's something that we can look at and think that that's what's happening. And I think it is happening because it makes sense. It's their survival depends on crossing that river. At the moment that they reach the river's edge, they have to immediately contend with the potential loss of their lives. So survival could end right there. the moment they enter that river. It could be it could be done. But at the same time, if they decide, oh no, I don't want to cross the river, they are risking potentially much better resources on the other side as they make their way further north, following those rains and getting the better grasses. So I think that strategy definitely comes into play. But at that moment at the river, the strategy, the pressure of making it across is the promise of better resources on the other side. But at that moment in the river, the strategy is about where does it look safest, obviously. So they're going to be looking for any other animals that have crossed. They're going to be watching them. How deep is it? They're going to be watching for predators, which they're extremely good at, as are all prey species. Extremely cautious and always watching for predators. The problem is, and I've seen this a couple times, not only during the migration at the river, but just also in life at the reserve, that herd animals, they can be heavily influenced by their herd mates. If one individual panics, it could cause chaos throughout the herd. And we've seen this a couple times while watching the river, haven't we? Where a couple of zebras cross and then suddenly there's a little bit of a panic. Someone gets scared in the middle of the crossing, turns around, tries to make it back, but that's exactly what the crocodile needed. Then there's another branch that starts forming a couple meters away, another pathway, and then that one seems to be safe, but then others start to join the initial pathway. So that kind of chaos is something that herd animals seem to be they seem to have a lot of because they are so heavily tuned in to what is happening in and amongst their herd that that can sort of give them tunnel vision. Look at how many they are, like ants. But in a way, that chaos of just following blindly or panic is what keeps them together. It's also a survival strategy because if you're a herd of 20 zebras and only one individual sees the predator and alarms at them and lets the rest of the herd know, but none of the others in the herd know, doesn't matter. Once that alarm call goes and the panic and the reaction happens from that single individual, that's enough for the herd to take the cue. I'm done, I'm reacting too. Because the moment somebody, an individual, turns around to want to see for themselves, that could be the difference between surviving or being dinner. Looks like they're all taking a little bit of a break now. Like I said, they don't mind this kind of grass. They don't mind the tall, coarse grass. It's all good for them. It also does make me wonder because it's not as if between the Serengeti and the Mara and then north and then south and round again, that grass gets completely depleted. Grass quality drops, definitely. Exactly, Iggy. That's the word stampede. Exactly. And I think that humans are much the same in the right circumstances. If somebody screams gunshot or bomb, in a serious way for those serious things, humans react the same way. As opposed to someone screaming, I don't know, sail. So just thinking about that, grass doesn't get completely depleted along the migration route. I wonder what triggers the zebra's movement, considering that they don't really need a particular quality of grass. What's stopping them from just staying here, where the grass seems plentiful, Doesn't look ideal, but it seems plentiful. And what is kind of, you know, pulling them over to the other side, knowing that they're literally crossing like these gates of death with the crocodiles around. I would actually, Kirst, if this means anything to you or if you have this data, I would love to know what the temperature is here, the minimum and maximum temperature in this area, because I just thought of something else random. It was just my random brain thinking about sorts of things. But that's the gift of being out here in the wild, is it's like your brain gets to, it's like gymnastics for your brain. So what I was thinking about was the temperature and the crocodiles, because this is winter and migration is happening in the winter. And Sukesh just told me that the temperature right now is 23 degrees Celsius. Ah, that temperatures I wouldn't expect it to go well below or anything below 10 degrees Celsius at the minimum is the minimum temperature for the day. So maybe that's still good for a crocodile because I'm thinking about crocodile digestion. With all this prey around, how much could the crocodiles really digest? Ah, lovely. Thank you very much. Night times and early morning temperatures are as chilly as 12 to 14 degrees Celsius. So when crocodiles, because they're ectothermic, they are cold-blooded. When it's too cold, but the thing is, I don't know what the temperature of too cold is. But when it's too cold, they can't eat, and they tend not to eat very much because they can't digest that prey. There's a component of heat involved in digestion and metabolism. And that also keeps the crocodile warm, but there's a sweet spot where it needs, if there is opportunity and abundance, needs to eat the right amount to make sure that it's not that it has enough to like, warm itself, but not so much that it actually is overloaded and can't eat. So when temperatures get very cold, again, I don't know what that temperature is, and I must find out. The whole the body effectively shuts down the digestive processes. So it's just so the crocodile would stop feeling hungry. Because remember that feeling of hungry is linked to what's going on in our digestive system. And all those pathways feed back to our brain and indicate, hey, I'm hungry, and you start feeling for food. So if those processes are shut down, the metabolism and the enzymes that require that warmth to actually function, if those start shutting down and not giving signals when temperature is too cold, then a crocodile might not even try to take prey. Now, I don't think that 12 degrees Celsius is cold enough for that, but I think it's pretty close. But I'm thinking about how the spectacle actually comes to be. Because we're thinking about what pulls zebras over to the other side when pretty nutrient scarce grass is okay for them and grass quality. And now thinking about the time for crocodiles. Could it be that, I don't know, the rains are the ones that predict it all. The rains are the ones that is the thing that the animals are following anyway. But I was thinking, could it be that it just slotted in so perfectly for the zebra and the wildebeest survival that they would cross the river at a time when crocodiles might not feel as hungry as they do in summer when those enzymes and that metabolism is warmed up and ready to go. I wonder. Those are just, that's just another day inside the brain of Trishala. Anyway, there were some elephants at El Doño. Let's go over and see if they're still around. Oh, hello, guys. Oh, we've got a giraffe at the back as well. Goodness, I absolutely love how they wait patiently in line for that one pipe that leads into the waterhole. And then, of course, there's a rogue or two who just decide, I'm not going to wait for the pipe, I'm just going to start drinking from the other side. Giraffe is waiting patiently. Oh, wow. Can you imagine 5 tons pushing around another 5 tons? It's just amazing. I can't even imagine that level of force and weight being thrust around. The giraffe is popping it over. Nah, not worth it. Bear Happy. Hi, Bear Happy. You're asking if crocs have a normal average body temperature like humans do. Well, the zebras are actually heading back towards the river at Main Can at the Mara River. So let's head over and see if we can actually see crocodiles while we chat about this. Oh, they're coming through. So obviously, and you know, Bear Happy, that crocodiles can't regulate their own body temperature internally like we can. And their body temperature fluctuates throughout the day, throughout the seasons, depending on the ambient temperature. They're happy you say if because you asked do crocodiles have a normal average body temperature like humans do, and then you added if so, you want to meet the guy with the thermometer. Oh my goodness, you let me tell you the amount of things I've come across when I thought, but how did we get this information? And who got this information? So I know that crocodiles have an ideal body temperature. So it's not the average because they cannot be an average because it's so dependent on external factors. Well, I guess they can, but it's not very useful data. But I know that they have a preferred body temperature, and that preferred body temperature is pretty high. It's about 30 to 33 degrees Celsius. Well, I say pretty high, like for a reptile. You might expect that it was lower, but that's the preferred body temperature. How one figures that out, that would be collecting a lot of data. So a lot of studies like this that give us these specific numbers and the specific data is thanks to zoos, to be honest. Because well, there's a couple things. In a zoo, there's plenty of staff, there's plenty of access, because you always can access the animals. You can do it on the daily, so you can collect information on the daily. You can have people whose job it simply is to collect temperature data on the crocodiles, and they have funding. They constantly have funding, whether it's from governments or different organizations, they have that funding. Whereas maybe if I wanted to do a paper on average body temperature or ideal temperature for crocodiles in South Africa, I'd have to go and hope that somebody is interested in that kind of research. So it's very likely that that data has come from captive animals. But 30 to 33 degrees Celsius is what I've come across as the ideal temperature that they like to maintain. Now I'm thinking about how they do it. It has to be a thermometer. It just means, well, where do they put that thermometer? I don't know. It's not like I feel like the most convenient thing would be an ear, but crocodiles just have ear slits and they're not very accessible. They're just behind the eye. Maybe mouth, because I don't think the other side is it's gonna be great. If the ideal situation for the human is to not aggravate the animal, then the bottom half of the body is not going to be too good to get that data. It could also be when they do like take blood samples for monitoring, they could, I suppose, also do it with the blood. Oh no! Kirst has gone and dug up some information for us, but typically vets measure a crocodile's body temperature using a probe, a long and flexible one that they insert into the cloaca. So it is the bottom half, everyone. Yes, and the zebra is nodding. Yes, the zebra is like, yeah, that's what happens. That's karma for the crocodiles, yeah. Get a probe inserted into your cloaca for take your body temperature. If you're not sure what a cloaca is so all reptiles and birds have a cloaca. So it's difficult to be able to say that just from looking that this is a male or a female, looking at the spot where genitals should be. Instead, there's a multifunctional canal. That's where they can give birth from, or lay eggs from, where they mate, and where they also produce waste. So multifunctional. So I guess the zebra are trying to figure out what they want to do, which is interesting. I know that there are some other like safari vehicles around and things like that, but if it's possible, I would love to have a bit of a wider view. I mean, the zebra in front of us that was nodding at the crocodiles getting probed has its ears pulled back, which tells me it's quite nervous. The others seem relaxed. And I don't think that they're close enough to the water just yet, to be strategizing and feeling nervous, but I could be completely wrong. Maybe it's happening all the way from here. But I feel like if they're closer to the river, they'd be able to strategize better, but that's just human brain thinking. It's definitely the focus. So, of course, there are some individuals with their heads down and they're grazing, but everyone who has their head up is focused towards the river. I also wonder about the role of vehicles, thinking about strategizing, like you were asking, Iggy. What role do we play in affecting that strategy? So when animals are habituated to safari vehicles, all that means is that they see the safari vehicle as zero threat. So it's not that they like the vehicle or that they will come and touch the vehicle. It's like the vehicle being a rock with wheels. It's just another part of their environment. So they don't interact with it. They don't they don't see anything. It's just another part of the environment. Um, and they've learned it's not a threat. So they don't do anything to the vehicle doesn't do anything to them. The vehicle doesn't taste like food, it doesn't smell like a lion. So it's a nothing. But just like a rock, if a rock were to be obstructing the view of these zebra, they'd also have to consider that when they're strategizing. And too many vehicles in the wrong places, like in the middle of where these zebra are trying to figure out where's the best place to cross, can't be good for them. I think so when we are guiding and we're in a game drive vehicle and we come across a sighting where there's an active hunt happening, we stay back because you don't know how it's going to turn and at which point you might be the one that causes this hunt to fail. You do not want to be part of it, right? I would hate for that to be on my conscience. Like this leopard that I know didn't get the impala because my vehicle was in the way or I started up at the wrong time and now it's hungry and I caused its hunt to fail. I would hate that hanging over me. So that's how we manage when there's something actively happening in a sighting, whether it's an animal trying to get away from a predator or a predator's hunting and stalking. We stay well away where we can still see, but they might be small, they're not 10 meters away. And I think that these crossings on the Mara River have to be handled in a similar way. So for me, that area where those cars are parked sort of looks like a good place for the zebras to come down. And Iggy711, you say the zebras seem very indecisive. I mean, there's a lot hanging on this decision, Iggy. A lot. And interestingly, I don't seem to see any crocodiles. But again, human eyes through a camera. Zebras are many, many times better at seeing predators than I am. I can tell you that much. I might be better at perceiving how far away a predator is because I've got these forward-facing eyes that give me a good amount of binocular vision with lots of depth of field. But zebra and many prey animals have awesome adaptations in their eyes to allow them to scan the environment with not even moving their heads because they have a line of cells across their eye where the image is sharp. So we have one spot of that in our eye. It's called the fovea. That's where when light hits that, the image that we get is the crispest and clearest. That's why we have to move around if we want to get other things in focus and see everything perfectly. Zebras don't have to do that. Those hypersensitive cells, they have a line of it across their eye. They don't have to move their heads. So I bet they're a lot better at seeing the crocodile than I am. But you know what? Again, I guess I've also got a red color cone, which definitely helps, and zebras do not. And not just me, you all have red color cones too. Hopefully. If you're colorblind, you might be a lot less sensitive to red. You don't lack the cone completely, because all cones are just receptive. They're just cells that are receptive to a particular wavelength of light. So some people have more receptive cells, or like highly receptive, some are less receptive, but they're still there. Okay, yeah, Iggy, they do seem very indecisive. I'm sure we will come back as soon as any movement happens. Maybe they'll move again and then stop and go back again. Who knows? But let us go back to Oldonyo. Spend some time with the Ellies. We have got 5 minutes left. There we go. Now, I heard from a guide in the Mara that one time died. I was very, very, very sad to hear about that. He was such an iconic elephant. I mean, honestly, when I come to the Aldanyo camera, that's what I'd look forward to. I'd look forward to seeing one ton. And I'm sure you all feel the same way and were saddened. But from what I understand about his death, it was completely natural and he sort of fell asleep and didn't wake up, which I think is such a fitting end for an icon. I wonder what that loss translates to for the male elephants, the herd, the bachelor herds, the pairs of male elephants that are in this area. What it does to the hierarchy, whether they mourn him too, or whether it's just elimination of competition. I'm sure there's a bit of both. Mindy, I actually saw this. You say that there was a dangerous animal-human interaction at Yellowstone that made the national news. A tourist got too close to a bison, and the bison got angry and flipped the man up in the air like a rag doll. I saw this video, Mindy, and I was absolutely amazed at one, the man who was running around this conifer tree trying to like hide from the bison. I'm not sure what he was doing, and then when the bison got hold of him, my gosh. It looked like it took no effort from the bison whatsoever. And I think that we're sort of we're guilty through I mean us as guides and people that work in wildlife media is that we sort of give people a false impression of how close you can get to animals, um, how calm they can be. We have these long cameras that allow the images to look like we're super close, but we're not. We are trained as guides and we know how to act around animals, wild animals. We know what our game drive vehicle offers us and the protection it offers us. We know how to be on foot with these animals and pay attention to these things. But the thing is, a lot of the time that doesn't really get demonstrated. And we might create a false impression of what it's like to be out in the wild. But the hunts happen quickly and far away. The animals are fine for you to get these nice close-ups. People might try for the same and, get flipped like a rag doll. And I think it really is part of our duty or our responsibility to maybe show what it takes more truthfully. If I were you, I would be paying attention to this camera and just looking at the relationships between these elephant bulls. Definitely heard of more tusk touching than I normally would at the camera. At this camera, you can hear that the sound of the ivory clunking almost. I don't know if it's aggression or if it's an expression of something else. The first time we heard it, when we were here the first time, it definitely felt a little aggressive, but the touching that I heard now didn't feel quite aggressive. So I would be paying attention to any developments you see in the relationships between these males, because I'd love to get an idea of what one ton's loss could mean to the elephant bulls in this area. But that is our time, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed yourself. It is always a pleasure to be with you, have your company and your questions and your comments. I will see you again on Thursday. Yes, I will. And until then, have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. Goodbye for now.